Tim, I want to thank you so much for joining me today. I think it's a very interesting topic. We're going to talk about raw living spirulina, which to me is the superfood of superfoods. One of those things that people are probably barely familiar with, and you, probably the world's leading expert. Thank you for joining me today.
Yeah, thank you, Michael. This is a great thing you're doing here, and let's get rolling on answering these questions and telling people about the world's most powerful superfood and the foundation of life.
What brought you to spirulina?
Well, we like to say here that spirulina doesn't, uh, we're in the right place at the right time, but we find that spirulina chose us, and instead of us choosing spirulina. It's following the right path, it's following the right health, and then you find the products and the destination you're supposed to find when you follow that path.
I completely relate because with the aloe vera, it found me. I know I'm on the right path, and it takes someone like you to really take charge in this space because there are other players in it, but as you and I both know, none compare.
Yes, there are a few people that are now trying to do this, trying to copy a little bit of what we've started, and we'll see what happens. But this spirulina is a tropical algae. It needs to grow in Florida in beautiful, warm sunshine, and these other players I think, are going to find out that they're not going to have the quality that we have.
Yeah, I completely understand. Well, let's talk about some of the products that have existed. You know what? Backtrack. What is spirulina?
Spirulina is known in the world as a blue-green algae. Technically, it's a cyanobacteria. It's lower on the food chain than algae. It is the foundation of life on this planet. 4.7 billion years ago, the Earth was created, and it spent 1.5 billion years in no life until 3.5 billion years ago. Life appeared as a cyanobacteria. So it is the oldest life on the planet, and every piece of life that we know today has originated from cyanobacterias. Spirulina is one of them, and it is responsible for producing most of the oxygen that we are all breathing right now, and still today is responsible for that.
Now, okay, how is that different than an algae then? An algae is more of a plant?
An algae is the next level above the cyanobacteria. It has different properties. Red algae is an example. Chlorella is an example of a green algae. It's a little bit closer to the plant world, plant kingdom. It's more of a something that you can see without microscope. Whereas the blue-green algae and the cyanobacteria, you have to look at a microscope. It's a microorganism, very, very tiny, tiny, tiny.
Okay, and which I have had the pleasure of doing, and it's called spirulina for a reason, and how it looks when you see it on a microscope.
Yes, it has that spiral-shaped coil, like identical to a DNA strand, and that spiral is where the spirulina comes from. It is actually the trade name as far as what we're all selling it under that brand, spirulina brand. But as most everybody knows, it was originally a fresh, beautiful, delicious food source that even today the people in Africa are still consuming out of Lake Chad. The Kamembu people scoop it out of Lake Chad, they spread it onto the rocks, they let it dry in the sun, and they consume it whole and fresh. But today we see it in the stores in Whole Foods and powdered form and flake form and chips form. Uh, those are mass produced, and then they have to dehydrate them. They have to spray dry them. They have to do something to extract the water from the cell structure in order to give it some kind of a shelf stability or shelf death, what we call it, because it isn't
Okay.
alive anymore at that
Yes,
point.
and It's probably not a terrible thing compared to what other people are eating when they're eating these shelf preserved things, but it is no longer a live living food.
Correct. Correct.
Yeah, yeah. So uh, when we look at spirulina, then in the pond, is it these little tiny separated, what makes the water green, or does it grow as a colony? How is it extracted from the water?
They're all individual cells, and it's just the trillions and trillions of them that make the color green in the water. It there are two main phytonutrients in the spirulina. One of them is the green, the chlorophyll, and the other one is the blue, the phycocyanin. Phycocyanin, phyco meaning plant, cyanin meaning blue, is the only blue phytonutrient on the planet today in food. There is no other plant, vegetable, fruit that has a blue phytonutrient to it. People might say, well, what about blueberries? Well, blueberries are actually purple. They're the violet spectrum of the sun. And this magic between the two colors gives that the water in the ponds that beautiful green, because that the chlorophyll is where the most of the light is coming through the cell membrane that we are seeing visibly. Behind that green chlorophyll is the blue phycocyanin, and that's really the magic phytonutrient in spirulina, that anybody can go on to the National Institute of Health, nih.gov, type in the word phycocyanin, type in the word spirulina, and you name it. You type in cancer, you type in heart disease, you type in diabetes, you type in any health challenge that people are facing today, and you will see study after study after study that shows the dynamic results that people are getting using spirulina. And now take it to another level and think about what results people would be getting if they were utilizing fresh spirulina in those studies versus the powdered spirulina.
Right. Yeah, I can relate because most aloe vera studies have been done with, pasteurized, preserved aloe vera, which I happen to know is diluted in the sense that once it's filtered, you're taking many of the nutrients out. It's not the same thing, just like when you take the life out of the spirulina. But you
Right.
just said something that I've heard before, but it just clicked in a whole new way. Talking about the phycocyanin, because I know quite a bit about phytonutrition. One of the things I like to communicate is that it's very important to get phytonutrients representing all of the colors. And you can
Correct.
get those from fruits, you can get them from vegetables, you can get them from spirulina. If they're in fruits and vegetables, we call them phytonutrients. We might call them zoonutrients from the animal kingdom. I don't know what they would be called from bacteria, but nonetheless, they're these micro, tiny, itty bitty nutrients that there are just thousands of. And what just lit up was the fact that if you want to get the blues, there's only one source.
Correct.
Very interesting. That's neat. These
Now you're getting the
phytonutrients.
full. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say these phytonutrients, we don't know how major of a role they play in our health because their absence doesn't show up instantly in our lives. It shows up over time. And we might be getting the blues already when we're eating things like fish, but why? Because the fish ate the spirulina.
Right.
What were you saying?
I was just saying that the chlorophyll spectrum that's in the spirulina is 575% higher than wheatgrass, and we know how powerful wheatgrass is from a chlorophyll perspective. And to look at some of these numbers, it's just off the charts incredible that you need just a small, tiny amount of something that is so nutrient dense to supply our life with more life. And that's what life is about, is bringing in more of this energy of the sun that promotes health.
Yeah, and it's funny because wheatgrass can be a little hard on you, and here's something that has more nutrients that is extremely gentle on your digestion, on your gut.
And you know, we love to say it's like a dessert. It's like a creamy, delicious. You know, we eat it off the spoon all day long here at the farm. It's just it's something that is part of our everyday routine.
I could imagine. I had my first taste of it at the farm with you, and I remember my reaction because it was completely not what I expected. It was so delicious, and there's just this magnetic pull. You know, stick that spoon in there again. You just want to enjoy it. I haven't eaten it to the point where I said that's too much, but I want to get there. I think what I need to do is open up a pound jar and just eat until I'm done and see how much it takes before my body says that's enough. You're full. You're satisfied.
Right. And you can do that. It's a whole food. You know, most people look at spirulina as a supplement, as something that you can add on to your daily routine. And when it's a whole, fresh, living cell, you can eat it as a whole. There are no missing parts to it. Where you know, a powder, you may want to use it as a supplement.
Yeah, I get it. You know, it's funny. Some people are afraid to have natural foods. In fact, I remember when I offered somebody an orange off my tree, and they were uncomfortable consuming it because it was grown on my tree in a yard and not
Right.
purchased at a supermarket. You know,
Right.
people are so far removed from growing and raising their own food when it comes to something so natural and so different, because we've never even purchased raw living algae in a grocery store. So what are some of the crazy reactions and fears that you've seen people while consuming raw living spirulina for the first time?
Well, we've had the pleasure of doing a lot of shows, especially at Hippocrates, and that's something that is really powerful to watch when something comes up. And you know, a lot of people don't know what it is. They know the term spirulina, but they don't actually know that it's a fresh live algae. You know, and to see the reaction is priceless. Sometimes, you know, even telling them afterwards what they have just eaten or consumed, and then seeing that. But you know, it really is you know, like your experience, pleasurable, nothing like they would have thought. It's not like going down to the pond and scooping out algae, and you know, you think about what that may or may taste like. But you know, there's so many nutrients that we used to get out of the rivers and lakes and streams to get our own water. You know, hundreds and hundreds of years ago, we weren't drinking bottled water. We weren't drinking water that's chlorinated out of the tap. So we had to go get water from the natural sources, and these natural sources have algae in them. So even the wild animals today, they get a lot of their B12 from the wild water sources they're drinking out of. And we humans that think we're smart, we're going to put chlorine in our water, sterilize it, and then wonder why we have B12 deficiencies all over.
You know, it's funny hearing that. I kind of laugh because I know you, and I know that you have made trips to get your spring water, and you get a lot of your hydration from, well, aloe vera, from coconuts. So it's funny when you speak of we're referring to the general population, but I know that you are so much different than that.
Yeah, every 3 months we drive up to Asheville, North Carolina, next to Black Mountain, and we collect 100 gallons of spring water from the top of Black Mountain, and that's all we drink, and that in coconut water. But yeah, I would never drink bottled water or tap water. I wouldn't even shower in it.
And that does say volumes about, who you are and the standards you have for your product. So I absolutely love that. Question about the actual harvesting. Is it scooped off? Does it float on the top? Is it, how is it harvested?
So we have 4 systems that are 10,000 gallons of water each. They're about 12 inches deep, and the algae grows on the surface primarily. It wants the sunshine. So our paddle wheels are turning the water and moving it horizontally, vertically, lifting the algae, lifting the water up to the surface so that they can get the sun. So once we harvest, it takes about 3 to 4 days for that to new cells to regrow back to so that we can reharvest again. And that's under perfect optimal conditions in the middle of summer, sunny, warm days. So we want to skim off the top surface those brand new baby cells that just grew.
Okay.
And that's what we're doing is we're skimming off the top the brand new baby cells and removing them through filter bags, mostly by hand, and then we rinse the water that it's grown in off of them, and then we have to de-water, which is what it's called, removing that rinse water and concentrate it down into the product that goes into the jars. And then we chill them overnight because they're growing in 90-degree water. And then we put them in the special compostable cooler boxes we designed and ship them FedEx, almost either overnight or the second day directly to the consumer's door.
Okay, so harvesting is primarily the day before shipping.
Yes.
All right, that's great.
So we harvest on
turnaround.
Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and we'll ship on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday.
Oh, incredible. Awesome. What are some of your favorite stories, people that have maybe fasted on raw living spirulina or used it as a way of changing their life and their health?
Well, I started 2017. I decided I was going to do a fast, and I did 30 days, 1 pound a day for 30 days, and some coconut water, and that was it. I did a full blood profile at the beginning, a full blood profile at the end, and I've been 100% plant-based for 18, 19 years now, 90% raw. So my blood profile was very good when it started, but what I saw was a 33% increase in my iron in the 30 days, which is pretty dramatic. I was at the low end of the iron of the normal when I started, and at the high end when I finished. And that was just to show people that yes, you can live on this. And this is what NASA decided to use as their food sources for space travel, because it is so nutrient dense. And then I think what happened is that stimulated other people to do the same thing or something close to that. So we've had 15, 20 people that have done 3-day to a 2-week fasting. And many of them have recorded their entire process and shown videos. And it really is a dramatic, I think it's the most dramatic experience someone can go through if you're going to fast, because you don't have to experience some people call it the suffering of getting over that day 3 once you start fasting on water. It's liquid nutrition. Your body can go through with the fast without having that feeling of starvation happening. But I hear stories every single day, and I wish I would have been somehow recording and documenting all these. And this is what drives us. This is our passion that makes us want to keep getting up every day and doing this, because we're really helping hundreds and hundreds of people every day. And these stories are I pause every time I talk to somebody and say how grateful I am for my health, but then how can I help more people and grow more, which is what we're trying to do every day.
You're probably one of the few people that I can really relate with on that, because of what you have, the product that you have, and what I know is, well, I've experienced it myself, and I'm one of those people that says, wow, what an amazing product, and I feel incredible when I consume it. So I understand that, and I'm in a similar business with the raw aloe vera, which it's such a unique food that people consume, and it has, again, super health benefits. So I get to answer the phone and speak to customers all day long. and they thank me for what I'm doing because no one else is doing it like us. And I know it's the
Right.
same for you, and it just brings a total joy to our lives. So
Sure does. Sure does.
tell me, you mentioned briefly science, and there's a number of studies on spirulina, and they may have been done on powdered, dried, inferior, or less nutritious brands. But what is some of the favorite science behind spirulina?
Well, spirulina is a whole, complete food. So all the nutrients that are required by the human body to thrive are in the spirulina. It seems like every time I go to do some more research, I find something else that's there that I didn't know about. And even though we haven't found out everything that's in the spirulina, when we are consuming it, we're getting everything that we know about it and everything we don't know about. Uh, all the minerals, all the phytonutrients that are primary for strengthening the immune system. We see the SOD, the enzymes, the oxygen, the life force that the sun. These are capturing the little solar cells from capturing the sun as the solar energy direct, so that when we consume that, this is what we're getting inside of our body. Um, it's endless. I mean, you could spend days and days and days just researching NIH of all of the amazing benefits that are there.
Have there been studies done on, people with cancer or
There
other
are
specific
many,
diseases?
yes, there are many studies on cancer, and that's one of the primary ones that we're focusing on. Uh, Dr. Vickers at the Gerson Clinic is utilizing our spirulina primarily as one of the top protocols for treating cancer at the Gerson Clinic. And it's been about 2 years now. He's been using it with all their patients, and they do 4 ounces a day in the regular protocol of the 9 to 13 juices. And I talk to him almost every week, and the stories that he's telling me are so dramatically different than what he saw 2, 3, 4 years ago when he was doing that, and he was using powdered spirulina. So once he made that transition, he's seeing a dramatic difference in the healing and the speeding up of the healing of the cancer.
Yeah, Dr. Vicker is definitely cutting edge. I love what he's doing there. And that's really neat to hear. And I didn't know that he was using powdered spirulina and now he's using raw living spirulina. That's absolutely great and amazing. But who would have known that raw living spirulina actually existed? And it didn't until a few years ago. So,
Did it right. Yeah,
man, thank you,
we're the
thank you,
first
thank you.
ones. We figured out over many years how to do this. It's not something that you can't take regular spirulina. The Arthrospira plantisis cells that most of the spirulina powders are made from is a very tiny cell, and the spirulina that we're growing is called Arthrospira maxima, which is 7 to 10 times larger than those cells. That gives us the ability to strengthen the cell membrane, to increase the nutrition, and it gives us the ability to harvest it fresh. Whereas the smaller cells, they're not able to harvest fresh. They don't hold up longer than a couple days out of the water. They will collapse. They're like our cells. They're like little tiny water balloons, and that cell membrane has to be strong enough to hold its stability as a fresh food in the jar, out of the water, out of its natural growing environment. We're able to extend it 14 days on average. We've seen it go 30 days. Put a jar in the refrigerator, open it up 30 days later, and it still looks the same as when it was first packed. And that depends on the amount of sunshine that we get. The sunshine determines the strength of the cell membrane. Um, for example, in the summertime, we have lower protein but higher lipids. And in
Okay.
the winter, we have pretty much the opposite. That's why when you see a lot of research on the protein content in spirulina, it will say 55 to 71%. That's why there's a range there, because it depends on how it's grown, where it's grown, the conditions, the quality, the nutrients that we add into the systems, and that determines the strength and viability of those cells out of the water.
Okay. So it has lipids or fats,
Yes.
protein. Are there carbohydrates?
Yes, about 22%.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's around, we range right around 65 to 71% is our range on the proteins. And those are the amino acids that are the raw amino acids that our body is able to utilize and make the proteins that we need in our body. Just like, all the rest of the natural wild animals that are mostly eating plants. And the strongest animals in the world are eating plants, the elephants, the gorillas, the giraffes, the rhinoceros. Those are all animals eating raw amino acid plants and converting those into the proteins to make their muscles.
Okay. What does spirulina eat?
That's a very good question. Spirulina is, because it's the foundation of life, it's taking basically the sun. It's using the sun's energy to create its cell structure. So that it's not really eating anything as far as a food, but it is uh, utilizing the nutrients that we're feeding. So we have to add iron, we have to add carbon, we add the sodium bicarb to raise the pH, because it grows in a 10.3 to 10.5 pH water, which is the highest alkaline food in the world. There's nothing that's anywhere near that spectrum of that high pH levels. Once all those nutrients are there in the perfect recipe, then the spirulina will thrive in that environment. It's a monoculture. It will not grow with anything else. So that's why spirulina is the only algae that is approved by the FDA, because it is a monoculture. It doesn't allow any other invaders. It doesn't have a defense mechanism to produce anything that would be harmful to it or to another species that it may be growing with. And that's why it's so rare. It's why it only grows in two locations primarily on the planet, which is Lake Chad in Africa and Lake Texcoco in Mexico. Those are lakes that only have spirulina in them. So there are other algae in the world that people are harvesting and selling, but they're not approved by the FDA and they're not a monoculture. So the other species that may or may not grow within them can produce defense mechanisms called cytotoxins, or toxins that can affect the water and affect those other algae. And that's why it's very, you want to be very careful what your source is, where you're getting the other algae. If you're buying other algae, you want to be careful where your source is, for sure.
I can assure anyone that's listening to this, if you try raw living spirulina, you will not be interested in any other sources. You know it is the real deal. I have to leave a link near this audio. Look below. I'm going to link to a video that we made a couple years back and have the starting point queued up to where I'm eating that for the first time, because you really see what's in the jar and what my true authentic response was as I immediately had that for the first time. I think it was such a neat moment for me and just opened up a whole new world of understanding to what raw living spirulina really is.
It was a wonderful moment.
Tell me about Tim White. What's a day in the life of Tim like? How early do you start your day, and what do you do?
I get up around 8, 9 o'clock. It varies. I follow the sun. Wherever the sun is shining, I'm waking up when that sun. So I follow the sun. In the wintertime, I'm going to bed a little earlier. In the summertime, a little bit later. It's just I live on the beach, so I don't know if you can hear the ocean in the background, but I love being outside. I love playing tennis. We live here at a tennis facility, so I play a lot of tennis. I grew up scuba diving. I'm a dive master. I lived in a lot of places around the world, lived in Australia for a while. So I primarily, like I said, I eat almost all raw food, all plants. And my focus throughout the day is every couple hours I'm hungry again. And I think that's kind of normal because the food that I'm consuming is going through me, pretty fast, and I'm utilizing it and burning it up. And so I'm always looking for some food every few hours. And it's uh, lots of juicing. I'll do 3 or 4 juices a day. I have a lot of avocados. I do a lot of sprouts. My wife and I are Hippocrates health educators, so we follow that lifestyle a lot. And my wife is now doing Matthew Kenny's culinary school. So for the last 6 months, she's been making these amazing foods every day. That has just been a total enjoyment to, wow, what's this and what's next today. And they're all plant-based. They're all unique recipes that I think are going to help change the world and the way we're going with the spike in veganism, moving people away from the bland, I like to say, meat products and animal foods, over to the array of natural plant-based foods that you can make so many amazing different things. And this is where we're going, and this is what's going to change the world. And I want to be, right there in the forefront to help change the world.
That's great. I love it. Where can people go to find out more? Obviously, rawlivingspirulina.com. Is there social media channels to follow you on?
On Instagram, on Facebook, yes, we're all there. The links are on our website. Raw Living Spirulina on the Instagram, and Facebook. We post some videos every once in a while.
Okay, great. I'm going to subscribe.
Okay.
I probably am already on some of them, but you're spread out, so I got to check them all out. If there was one take-home point for people regarding spirulina, what would it be?
I would say in your life, the best thing you can do is to eat wet foods. And what I mean by wet is foods that have water to them. And that's what I look for every day. And spirulina is water-based how it grows, but it's also liquid, primarily liquid-based as this water balloon, like I mentioned earlier. And those liquid nutrients are what feeds us. We don't have solid foods running through our blood. Every food that we consume our body has to extract the liquid portion of that nutrition. And that's what feeds us. That's what supports our immune system. So go towards the wettest foods you can find, and you will be as healthy. That's, it goes back to water, drink a lot of water. Water is, the secondary nutrient on planet Earth, oxygen being number one.
Right.
And you get all of that when you consume the fresh spirulina as the foundation of life. You're not going to have to worry about anything above that foundation that may have a negative impact in your life, because it's the bottom of the food chain. It's as low as you can possibly go. It's where everything begins.
That's great. I'm going to order some more right now.
Okay, Michael.
Tim, thank you so much for joining me and answering so many questions. And to our audience, when you hear this, if you have questions, send them to me. And if we haven't answered them here, we'll get them answered from the source, from Tim. So thank you again, Tim.
Yeah, thank you, Michael. Have a great day.